Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on such a sunny day. We're delighted to have two guests on the Talking Talent Live today, where we're going to talk about mindset and from the eyes of a frontline advisor of what it is to work in a contact centre. And I'm delighted to be joined by two guests today. So we have our MD Leanne. Leanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. I was about to say good morning, but it's not, it's afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Leanne Chambers and I'm the Managing Director at Greenbean.
And we have Julie from a business called Activated Mindset, so a mindset expert. Julie, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us on today. My name is Julie Turnbull and I'm the co-founder of a business called Activated Mindset. Do you want me to tell you a little bit about what we do, Julie?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
it'll save me having to do it.
Yeah, Activated Mindset, we basically have a huge passion around people. What we try to do is work with not just individuals, work with teams across a corporate entity, if you like, to work on mindset and goals and limitations, belief systems, and really sort of support those individuals to work on how they show up in an organisation. So very much look at their individual belief systems and how that impacts on their everyday and working environment.
Okay, fantastic. And you've worked in a contact centre environment yourself in the past, haven't you?
Wow. Yes, I have indeed. Many moons ago. Yes. So we, my initial career started off in a call centre, which was brilliant in the insurance sector. And I've very much recruited my previous experience. This was also recruitment, and I've done a lot of recruitment for a lot of advisors in the industry, right, sort of from very small organisations right through to your big national volume organisations too. So yes, this is definitely a subject that's very passionate to my heart. Working with people in terms of mindset from a volume point of view, so very much people who are walking through the door on a day-to-day basis.
Perfect. So thank you for that. So what I would like to say to anybody joining us today, please pop any questions in and we'll try and get to them as and when they come along. But also just pop a note in to say hello. Let us know that you're there. Because as presenters, we don't actually always get to know who's in the room unless you comment. So it'd be great for you to say hello and add your questions in there. And I'm sure as we get further into the conversation, you'll probably have more and more questions. So I guess my first question to you, Julie, is can you put into context what is mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. Mindset is something that is so prevalent right now in any industry, whether that's contact center or across the board. Mindset is basically a set of belief systems that we hold as an individual. It's something that allows us to make sense of the world almost. So it's something that impacts us every single day in terms of the story that we tell ourselves. So, for example, imagine a call center advisor walking in to see you through a recruitment process right now. What is the story that they're currently telling themselves and how would that impact them on a day-to-day basis? To give you an example of something, our limiting beliefs is something that's very much driven from our childhood, and it's something that's impacted and it's subconscious, and it's really something that is a powerful tool that affects how we show up every single day. So something, for example, that we may have been told at school, where we may have been told, oh my God, you're rubbish in exam situations. That's something that will still impact us on a day-to-day basis in our current roles and our current situations and our current lifestyles. Because it's something that has triggered an emotion or a belief system that would show up in that particular moment of time, if you like.
So mindset, I guess, is that all on learning from past behaviours then?
Yes, it is. I think it's a circle, if you like, of what we look at. So our thoughts would impact our actions, and our actions impact our behaviours. So if we look at that as a circle as it goes round, if we assume something because of our thought processes, then how we show up, that would affect our actions. So with mindset, it's just such a powerful opportunity for us to really sort of hone in on how we show up on a day-to-day basis. So it's a minefield. It's absolutely minefield. It's so crazy how influencing it can be in everyday life. Yeah. It's a great thing to learn about.
Brilliant. Well, I'm excited to learn a little bit more, and especially in the contact centre industry where we're all embedded into that. What do we know in relation to mindset?
I think in the contact centre, we have to look at kind of setting the scene. Who's our advisors? Who are these people who are showing up every single day? You know, those people are our brand, they're our identity, they're the frontline person that has the first interactions with anybody when they're picking the phone up, or whether they're, you know, operating as part of a team, or whether they're, you know, learning or growing within that call centre environment. But what we also know that is individual mindsets really impact our behaviours. They really impact how we show up on a day-to-day basis. So if we don't acknowledge that within a call centre environment, how can we then get those people to represent who we are or represent who our brand is? Does that make sense? I think when we talk about it, it's so important. I mean, what I would say is your guys, your businesses, they know who their role profile is. They know who their people are. They know the type of person who generally comes in through the door. But I suppose what they don't know is they're not understanding what that person is at that time is going through in terms of their mindset or their behaviours. People will change on a day-to-day basis. Their priorities change, what their job intention is, what their journey looks like. They will change on a day-to-day basis. And we need to appreciate that those people who are walking through the door, that we are working to understand who they are. So for example, if I say, you might get somebody who walks through the door who is a single mum. You might get somebody who walks through the door who is a graduate or a first person who's on their job. These people are 100% different souls. They come with a different set of priorities. They come with a different step of a different set of goals and a journey that they want to be on. And we need to understand how we work with those individuals on a step-by-step basis more so. We need to understand what their priorities are in that moment. So I think if you think about somebody who is coming and walking through the door, who's coming for their first job, so to speak, they're excited, they're nervous, they're really, they don't know what's going to happen, they don't understand what the industry is, they have no expectation of what that journey looks like, versus somebody that's walking through the door who has been in 5 contact centres before that. Their perception of what that role looks like and their belief system of what their journey looks like is very, very different. So we need to be able to work a solution that fits amongst those different skills almost. So I think that's a really important point. And I think another important point to factor here as well is around the story that those individuals are telling themselves. So when we talk about mindset, when we talk about what we've said there about mindset as a set of beliefs and systems, each of those individual people that we've talked about will come through with a different set of beliefs or systems, but also with a different story that they're telling themselves. So for example, we talk about the media. When the media is out there, the media is giving an idea, if you like, of what it's like to work in a contact centre environment. So how does that impact an individual as they walk through the door? So if it's that new person that's just starting their first job, they're going to be so nervous. They're going to be like, oh my God, this is such a scary place. Like, what am I doing here? Why would this be a choice for me? And we need to understand how we prioritise their set of beliefs, versus the person that's walking through the door who thinks, you know, I'm maybe not going to show up in this interview because contact centres are not the place that I want to work in. You know, or the single mum who's desperate for money or desperate for that opportunity to get into work. You know, how does that show up when they're sort of moving forward into that particular recruitment process?
Really interesting, especially, you know, we look at customer segmentation within the contact centre, but not necessarily the segmentation of the frontline advisor. So it's a really interesting point for us to think about. So what qualities or characteristics do you think that, or mindset, do people need to have to thrive in the contact centre environment? And how should the recruitment process prioritise those factors, Julie?
It's a really interesting question, because for me, we talk about people changing priorities and mindset on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. You know, something's happened, something's triggered them. So, you know, their priorities change, which ultimately affects their characteristics. You know, when we've got people that's walking to a job interview, they're walking in with the sense of excitement, you know, they're really sort of driven, they're really sort of motivated to want to succeed in that situation. But ultimately, how do we assess that through a recruitment process, that those people are going to show the longevity? They're going to show the impact that they can have on that organisation, because we can't measure what impacts their mindset from one day to the next. So it's very difficult to say, okay, this is the characteristics, because we know we need to be customer centric. We know we need to be, you know, sort of really confident. We know we need to have all of those areas in place. But what happens when those change of priorities happen, and what happens when those people suddenly become disengaged, or they suddenly become demotivated, or when they're really sort of stressed or overwhelmed, they suddenly lack empathy. You know, we can't necessarily put a picture on this is the perfect person that we particularly need. What we can do, though, is we can certainly look at existing members of call centre that have been there for a very long time, and we can put a, if you like, we can put a diagnostic on there that says you are our people, so we can attract for that. But what we certainly can't do is just focus on a characteristic. We have to start looking at behavioural traits as they come through that recruitment process, and ultimately be ready for them once they've come into the centre, and how we onboard them and how we retain them. You know, that's the real sort of critical key part of that for you.
Perfect, thank you. And I guess that leads me on nicely to bring Leanne in on the conversation now. From a recruitment process, I mean, Julie asks, how do we do the bespoke model for the different characteristics? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's really interesting. I think the things that you've sort of talked about already, Julie, a lot of that really ties in with what we talk to our clients about as well, because you're right, it's not a one size fits all. And we do a lot of work with clients around behaviours, about looking at what good looks like in their contact centre, because I think it's not about designing a recruitment process and that's it. It's about continuously reviewing that, carrying out that internal benchmarking piece. You know, you need to be looking at this at least every 6 months, because we all know how quickly things are evolving in the customer service space at the moment. So I think for us, with some of the work that we do with clients, it's absolutely about, like you say, the behaviours, the soft skills. It's not always about somebody, and yes, these people are just as valuable that have that extensive experience in a contact centre. But actually, could you be looking at other industries where they've got those natural behaviours that are going to work in this environment? So I think, going back to your point, it absolutely has to be about that constant review of the process to make it as inclusive as possible, because you're looking at all different kinds of backgrounds. As you said, you know, you've got your long-standing customer service advisor that's worked in different environments, but you've also got somebody coming in new and fresh that really needs to understand what that's going to look like moving forward. So there's a lot of different elements to that to think about.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all, is it?
No, absolutely
not.
So Julie, you mentioned the onboarding and, you know, how we get our people to be set up for success. How do you think the onboarding process could be improved to better equip the new hires, bearing in mind the different mindsets that they may have stepped into with completely different opinions?
Yeah, I think the biggest question that we have to continually ask through all of the process, whether that's the recruitment, whether it's the attraction, the recruitment, the onboarding, and retention, whatever that is, we have to always come back to the question of why. Why are they here? You know, what do they want? What do they want when they're here? What are they trying to achieve through this process? You know, and if we come back to the why, that really gives us an opportunity to say, okay, we can give you all the technical training in the world when you come to us, but if we're not working with you to understand the why of why you want to be here, then we can't actually develop a structure or a system or a process that sits to be able to get the best out of you, what you're looking for. We've got to identify the behaviours and actions that those people are bringing to us and just feeding it back in. I think it's working with those advisors to understand. They are continuously feeding back into them. We're wanting to understand what's going on with them on a day-to-day basis, but also leaning in towards some of what we said, you know, around softer skills that they need to pick up on, and the mindset programs that could be there to support. So, you know, yes, we can teach you how to use the system. Yes, we can teach you how to handle a couple of customer complaints. But hang on, can we teach you how to handle, you know, your imposter syndrome when that comes in, how you're feeling when you show up to that call? Can we teach you how to, you know, manage the overwhelm when the kids are at home, when they're having a really bad time or something specific is happening outside of a work environment, but that impacts you and how you show up? You know, once we can get over sort of how somebody procrastinates around a situation of change or learning or you know, a movement of team or leadership or something, once we move around those areas and we give them the tools to be able to work on themselves individually, those are the people that will stay. Those are the people that will want to learn. Those are the people that will want to show up for you. So it's about, for me, always coming back to the why. Why are they there? Is it their first job? What's their priorities? Why, you know, why they want to be? Are they looking for a career? How can we support that to give them the career that they would want? Is the development opportunities there? Is the training opportunities there for them? Are we supporting them to upskill, retrain, you know, move around the contact centre if that's what they're specifically needing? But what is their why? You have to come back to what is their why.
Great. And Leanne, I guess, you know, this is what you and the delivery teams that you lead do every day, is looking at constant review of the onboarding process. What do you think we need to be doing around the onboarding process to improve mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really around the whole process from that first interaction that an individual has with the business. It's really important. You know, we talk a lot about customer experience. It's equally important that the candidate going through the recruitment journey and onboarding journey has that really positive experience as well. You know, we go back to this review stage. Of course, there has to be review, but I think you can't really underestimate the importance of getting that onboarding experience right, because that's the initial experience of your organisation. So I think for us, you know, we're looking at a lot of different things with clients about how they can improve onboarding. It's not a sort of bums on seats approach and then we're off. For us, it's really got to be around making sure the recruitment process is right, that onboarding experience is right. We're launching something at the moment called Grow, getting ready for opportunities at work, which is a training business. And basically what that's allowing us to do is reach out to frontline advisors from potentially haven't worked in the sector before. I think it goes back to what you said, Julie, about harnessing the right behaviours and understanding them more and what their drivers are. And if somebody is, for example, from a travel or retail background, how we kind of understand what their priorities are at work to I guess, facilitate them moving into a new sector. So this is sort of modular based training. And I think what that does is set expectations of what the industry is for people that are coming from outside of it. So it'll be talking about, you know, that first step into the contact centre. What's that going to look like? What's that going to feel like? So by the time they've done their onboarding and they've done their first sort of 3-4 weeks in that organisation, they're probably where some of these really experienced advisors are as well. So I think it's really about, like you say, harnessing that mindset and making sure that we're driving the right behaviours into our contact centres and customer service areas. And it could be through a variety of channels, really. But I think it's critically important that everybody from operations to talent acquisition to recruitment partner to everybody involved in that process is nailed on with what that needs to look like and understanding how that's going to make those candidates feel.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. And I know we'd recently looked into some research on early attrition, and it was something shocking, like 84%. Was it something like that? It was cited as wrong person for the job?
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, it was. Actually, let me tell you the exact stat, Julie. Now you've put me on the spot. I'm sure I've got it.
I'm sure it was something like 84%, but it was phenomenally high of
The
wrong hire.
The main reason that candidates are leaving jobs is because they're just not the right fit for the role, or it's not the right job for them. So if you can kind of take that back a step in terms of exploring mindset at the sort of early stages of the recruitment process, again, you can really look at how you might improve those attrition figures further down the line when you understand what their priorities are.
Yeah, excellent. So I know you touched, Leanne, on what the role of leadership is and the strategies to support systems on mindset. Julie, what are your thoughts around that?
What, in terms of the leadership side?
On recruitment, onboarding, attrition, what strategies can we put in place? What support systems and what role does the leadership play in all of that?
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. You know, I think, Leanne, you've just touched on it just before there. You know, one of the questions that I always ask is, organizations are doing all these great things that they can do right through the recruitment process, the onboarding, but I don't think there's enough analysis around what the stats include in terms of a mindset theme, if you like. You know, one of my key questions is, if you actually understood around the mindset, understood the drivers and behaviors, how many people have actually left those roles simply because their mindset wasn't in the right place, simply because they had other factors going on in their own life circumstances that were maybe external to their job, maybe external to what was going on. Maybe they had different drivers around, you know, the money that they needed to earn, or they had different drivers around sort of where their career was going to take them. Are we losing people in the call centre industry because of life influences or life impacts, or because of the poor fit for the job? And I don't think we do enough around that analysis, because yes, we can say, right, a lot of people have left, and we believe it's because they were just a poor fit because they didn't meet expectation. But have we ever asked the question whether those people have left the industry simply because they had overwhelming factors going on and they just couldn't cope with them, so therefore it was easy to exit rather than stay?
I think you're right, actually, Julie. I think there's a lot of organisations now are looking in a lot more detail around that exit analysis, because you're right, unless we know the drivers of why people are leaving organisations, how can we really put that right? And you know, that was a really overarching stat that we talked about. But you're right, within that, you've got, you know, personal reasons that people are moving on, lack of flexibility, you know, there's a whole host of reasons why. But unless we use an analysis, really analyse that data, then what's the point in having these stats? We've got to take it back to how we started the recruitment journey and really look at how we make that more fit for purpose to attract new people into the sector as well. So you're right, you've got to do something with that data rather than just having these stats.
Absolutely, because I think if we recognize that, we'll recognize it, you know, mindset, and people are the front line of what we do. So if we're not working with what we do, how can we therefore expect it to work or retain, or, you know, sort of grow ultimately in or flourish in the industry that we're in? And then we come back to sort of around what we mentioned there about leadership. For me, I think leadership is, if you like, leadership's the first point of contact with anything when they're walking through the door in terms of that recruitment process. So we need to get that right. Leadership is, for me, it's a huge area of focus when I come to the work that I do with any industry. And sometimes we work with leaders and, from my experience, we recognize that they're just not where they need to be in terms of a mindset coach, if you like. So recognizing how their messaging, recognizing how their words, recognizing how their behaviors impact that person from the first foot that they've walked through the door. So the minute they walk into that recruitment process, it's so difficult sometimes to not sort of recognize that how that leader projects a conversation or how they say something out loud would impact that person and how they hear that conversation. So to give you an example, somebody might walk into a recruitment process and the leader might say something around, oh my God, we're working in a really fast-paced working environment. But what somebody hears in that conversation is not necessarily what that leader's trying to portray. So if a leader said that, what that person might think is, oh my God, it's going to be so overwhelming. I can't cope with that. My limiting beliefs tell me that I can't work in a fast-paced environment. So we've really got to concentrate on the terminology that we use in that recruitment process, because you could automatically be ruling people out or, triggering somebody, as we say. So if we've triggered somebody, they're not going to bring their best selves into that recruitment process. They're not going to show you who they are. They're not going to show you how good they could be in that role, because you've triggered something that happened to them 10 years ago. But ultimately, you can't impact that or influence it. But what you need to do is be very much aware of it. So we need to be very conscious as we're taking people through the recruitment process, that we're using the right terminology, we're using the right assessment methods, that we're concentrating really on behavioural methods. But ultimately, it can't be the final stand and the final show of what you choose as a yes into that industry. Again, I've got to come back to, yes, we get them through, we get them in, but it's actually about what we do with them when we're in, what we offer them in terms of support, training, nurturing, love, guidance once they've actually walked through the door.
I think you're right. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you're right. We do a lot of work around things like, even going back as far as adverts, some of the wording that you use in adverts, words like fast-paced could potentially scare people off. Mm-hmm. So it's just being mindful that all the way through your recruitment process that you are being inclusive and you're reaching as wide a demographic as possible, mm-hmm. I think. But just to go back to your point earlier about leadership and what else they can do, I think, one, it's hugely important that they're joined up at each stage of the process, because like you say, you can have this fantastic all singing recruitment mm-hmm. process, but if the onboarding's mm-hmm. rubbish, then it's pointless. So absolutely. It really has to be about, from start to finish, that all of the leadership that have been involved in creating this process are engaged, yes. in all of your stakeholders mm-hmm. know exactly what's expected of them. But I think also, it's things like onboarding, team leaders getting involved with the onboarding experience, getting involved Definitely. With the assessment process. So, mm-hmm. so a candidate gets a really good feel for what it actually is to work in that contact centre. You sometimes wait 3-4 weeks before you start a job. You've been offered yes. and then you have a 4-week gap. Yes, we can talk about the sort of training model, but I also think it's important that you create that community, because quite often you're having maybe 10 to 12 people starting together on an intake. Have your team leaders create this community, so by the time people start, they've attended maybe 2 or 3 engagement events, whether it's online, whether it's face-to-face. So regardless of, I guess, what their priorities are, that they're going to have that element of comfort that they've met yes. the rest of the team that they're going to be joining with. They know who their team leader is going to be. They know who their wider leadership team are, and they're much more comfortable coming in. You're creating that community, which I think, regardless of priorities and mindset, is going to give people much more comfort in terms of starting in their new roles.
And absolutely. That for me, that is a differentiator between, we all know that how many people are recruiting for the same kind of role at the moment, and that could be the thing that swings it to make them start on day one with your organisation, is the sense of community and the belonging feeling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I think it's like you say, it's the impact, and what happens between that recruitment of the yes, you're going to start a job, to the first day that you start. Remember mindset, remember the story you tell yourself, remember all those limiting beliefs that can come in at that moment in time. You want an organisation to step forward, and you want them to hold your hand through that limiting belief process. You want them to understand that you're feeling fear, you're feeling scared, you're feeling like you're not good enough to do this job. You want them to be able to almost support each stage of that journey. And I think it's a great idea to have those touch points all the way through before they start on day one. They're walking in there, they're skipping, they're happy. They're going to be your biggest brand ambassador at that point.
Absolutely.
Can I just remind everyone, please feel free to add any questions that you may have for either Leanne or Julie today on mindset, on recruitment, on building the community, and we'll get to your questions as and when we can. But please remember, take part in the session and pick their brains while we can. So I guess that the next question I've got is around the common challenges that organisations find that when they're coming to recruiting individuals with the right mindset into the contact centre environment.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that when we're doing an initial sift, if you like, of CVs, or we're doing an initial screen of somebody on across a telephone conversation, we can't pull out of that how somebody will handle a stressful situation. We can't pull out of that what somebody's perceived thoughts around the industry or their assumptions around the industry are. So we need to really concentrate on that. We need to be very mindful that candidates may come through with a very strong communication. They may have that what looks like a customer-centric mindset to be able to join a call center environment, but ultimately, how will they handle it when they get thrown 3 systems, when they get told all the policies and they get, this is how we deliver on that message? How will that impact them? And that's what we need to focus on as part of that recruitment process. Almost, we've got to consider assessment methods that really pull out those behaviours, put them in situational environments where they could actually see how somebody reacts, how they participate, how they grow within that. But again, we can do all of this through the recruitment process, but we have to consider as well how we nurture those people when they come through the onboarding. What you mentioned before, amazing. Those people will really feel nurtured as they arrive at the door. And then I think it's how we, what we do in terms of ongoing coaching support with those people as they travel their journey, as every day when it changes, when every day when their mindset evolves and it grows, it shifts or it changes, what are we doing to nurture those people at that moment in time? Because priorities change, people change. Those graduates really want to go off and find a job somewhere else because that's what the industry tells you have to do. You can walk into a call center, but oh my God, you can't stay in a call center if you're a graduate. You've got to move on. So it's how you work with those mindsets to evolve a offering or a solution to them that almost puts their mindset at ease and works with them to want to stay, to want to, so you can retain them within the industry.
Leanne, have you got any ideas on some more of the common challenges or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to challenges in terms of recruiting individuals with the right mindset, I think one that's really prevalent at the minute, and there's a lot of conversations that we're all having, is around AI, is around ChatGPT, because I think what that's creating for us at the minute is going to be a whole host of candidates with wonderful CVs that are able to answer fantastic questions on application forms, helps them with interview prep. So I think that is a challenge, but I think it's also an opportunity in terms of how we review the recruitment process and how we assess candidates, because I think it's probably old school to sift out on a CV now. It needs to be about mindset, I guess, softer skills. The hard skills can be taught. So I think really it's about looking at how we assess, like you say, Julie, through scenario-based, where we can see how people naturally react to situations. They don't necessarily have to have that experience before. So I think that it's going to become increasingly important how we assess candidates moving forward, given the advances and this surge of activity around ChatGPT at the minute, is to make sure that our internal recruitment teams, our recruitment partners have got a regularly reviewed fit for purpose process that's going to encompass all of the things that we know are in terms of what good looks like in our contact centres. So I think that is probably a more emerging challenge in terms of finding candidates with the right skill set and the right attitudes and everything else. But I think that's something that we all really need to be mindful of. And actually, I think it's going to be a positive in terms of it being more behavioural based than it ever was before.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I think it'll be where, not just because I work in a recruitment business, but it's going to be even more prevalent where our human interaction is needed to whittle out all the brain surgeons from their CVs. So I definitely think it's of interest. So what are some of the potential pitfalls or challenges organisations might face when trying to prioritise mindset in the context of recruitment and onboarding? Julie, I'll come to you first on that.
Yeah, I think with this particular question, we all know, we've all been there. We've done volume recruitment in contact centres. What happens is there is a need, there's a flux of people required. So ultimately, you can have all this all singing, all dancing, behavioural recruitment process, but ultimately the people that arrive at that process, the team leaders, the leaders, those are the people that are feeling the real pressure point in that conversation. So really, when we talk about sort of what their constraints are, they are going to go straight in for the volume as opposed to actually recognising the need to think about mindset and the impact that that has in terms of their retention stats. It's, you understand that that's they need the volume requirements. So it's like how we manage that and how you put the points on to make sure that they're managing that process as fairly as it can. And I think as well, one of the biggest strains is how limited visibility is in the recruitment process around mindset. How much can we pull out? Like we've said before, that person who shows up on the day is having a really good day. They're excited. They're going to start this new job, or hopefully going to get their job of their dreams, and it's going to be the best thing ever. But that person at that point is operating with a really sense of high regard. They're really confident, they're really happy, they've got high energy. But once we're getting them into the centre, it's that point when something's triggered them and they've moved on from that it's not giving us the real true visibility of that. And I get it, there's a limitation around what can happen in a recruitment process around so the time that you've got, the budget that you've got. There's a real sort of constraint around that. But we've got to be very mindful of it. We've got to be mindful that if we get it wrong at the recruitment stage, then the impact that has coming through into the centre, potentially you're bringing somebody through who may be really negative or maybe in a really difficult place, who is going to really struggle the minute that they get onto the floor if we've actually thought about it around a negative bias point of view.
Okay. Leanne, have you got anything to add to that?
I think it's just really comes down to the need for training and calibration with anyone that's involved in the hiring process. Certainly from a mindset perspective, because I think you're right. I think people are going to prioritise filling roles. If somebody can evidence an element of the right behaviour, it might be, or their face fits sometimes. So it has to be about that real calibration of your hiring manager community or your team leaders or whoever's involved in that recruitment process, to make sure that you've sort of got that open and fair process. You've got your matrix in terms of how things are marked and everything else. But absolutely making sure that there is an understanding around the mindset piece. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that I always go back to around mindset is what I would call the 80-20 rule. 80% of what's going on with somebody is around the story that they're telling themselves, and 20% then becomes the application side. So if we look at it from a recruitment point of view, it has to balance with that. So how are we working with those people to make them feel safe, secure, valued, that they're a purpose to that organisation, that they will be supported if they need to be at a moment that they need that? How are we managing that versus actually, we know what our statistics look like. We know where the key industries are, where these people come from. We know we can train them and give them the transferable skills to do the role. But if their mindset's not right, they will never be able to learn. They'll never be able to apply that. They'll never be able to see it differently from the eyes of what you guys need it to be.
I've got a really interesting question actually from Sarah Hunt, who's just joined the Green Bean team this week. So thanks for the question, Sarah. It's for Julie. How important do you think that it is colleagues know that their new organisations have invested in training and development on their mindsets?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. You have at the moment, if you consider the current world right now, mindset, well-being, it's such a prevalent subject. Everybody is thinking, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm feeling a little bit stressed, or, anxiety is a word that's thrown around so many times. And, when we talk about people in a situation like a contact centre, it can be overwhelming, it can be stressful, it can be high paced, it can be all those buzzwords that we said we don't want people to use, because we want people to not trigger emotions. But if a candidate from the outset is walking into an organisation where they felt valued, where they felt supported, where they know that they're going to have an opportunity to invest in themselves and ultimately work on their own mindset to be able to, to grow and build on what they have, they will show up. They will show up so happy. They will show up so confident. They will show up so strong. So for me, when we go back to the 80-20 rule, it's probably one of the most, obviously I'm very biased, but I believe mindset is, far needed than some of our technical training that we deliver on.
And how can organisations maintain and sustain a mindset-focused approach to recruitment and onboarding?
I think it's about expectations, isn't it? It's about how they communicate that. It's about how they deliver on those expectations. It's how they consider their terminology, like we said, right through the recruitment process, right through into the interviews. And then it's about having a structure in place that supports that individual when they arrive. So I think, again, go back to what you guys are planning to do. Amazing. They're going to walk into there knowing that they've got an employer that values them as a person, that they're there to, that understands that sometimes a belief system triggers and sometimes they don't show up at 100% as what they should do. But they actually, that they're okay with that, because they know at that moment in time that their employer will support them through that process. And I think it's about having a structure where they they feel continually recognised. So we all like to be recognised. We all like to know that we're doing a good job. Are you actually considering that when it comes to a mindset? Are you thinking about that when it comes to the positive interaction that you have with that individual? That's so important. And it's so important to, for me certainly, is to lead by example. So like we've gone back to leaderships, the leaders need to lead by example. They need to show up, they need to support, they need to, help those people at the time that they need it the most. And in doing that, I think it builds on a sense of camaraderie. It's always a word I can never pronounce. Camaraderie. It gives the people, it makes them feel like they're part of something, that they have a sense of belonging to an organisation. Emotional intelligence, a lot of buzzwords going around about emotional intelligence. People are so more emotionally intelligent than they were probably 5 to 10 years ago, because 5 to 10 years ago we accepted the situation. We could go into a call centre and that's what we're going to do. That's me. That's my job. That's where I'm going to be. But now people, they want and they deserve more, and they're more connected to what their self-worth actually is. So if we can build a solution that sits around that, then these guys will, it can only be a positive story that they tell themselves.
And Leanne, any thoughts from you on how we can maintain and sustain the mindset throughout the recruitment process? I know you've mentioned diagnostic, but can you give us a little bit more thought on that?
Yeah, I think it's basically that, Julie. I think it's about that regular review. We've talked a lot about it not being a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about, reviewing candidate experience right the way through that process, making sure it's high touch in terms of how much we liaise with them and get feedback throughout the process, so we know we can make changes so it remains fit for purpose. But I think, just going back to your point, Julie, about leading from the top and the sort of leadership team really sort of standing behind making sure there is that continuous review and that it is a priority, absolutely that needs to be happening. But I kind of also think it's about the consistency and approach. Never mind a great big bang, we've launched this recruitment process. Let's be consistent. Let's make sure it remains a priority. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable. I think it's just going to collapse. We need to really stand behind making sure that candidate experience remains at the forefront in terms of importance, equally as important as the customer experience.
Yeah. Great advice there. So, and how would you say a strong employer brand can attract and retain talent with the desired mindset? And this is the golden $1 million question that everyone will probably want. So, Julie, what are your thoughts on that?
For me, we talk about people being at the front of what we do. Though the people are our walking, talking advert, if you like, who go out there. So, we can talk about the back end of the system, whereby what are we doing with the people that we have in our centres, how are we giving them the tools to align themselves with an organisation's values, so if people are attracted to an organisation that supports them and allows them to flourish and grow. So what we want to do is we want to make sure the people that are coming in from the front end of the recruitment process are attracted to that initial brand. But it's like, how do you create that brand? How, what are you putting out there? What are you telling people you're about? What's your vision and values? Is it people centric? Are people at the forefront of what you do? Yes, you have a contact center. Yes, you have thousands of people working in it. Yes, you have you're delivering for a very important customer group or whatever it is. But ultimately, it's your people that's doing that. So how are you then investing in those people to be able to deliver that message and deliver on it what you need it to be? And I think the messaging is so very important. You will fight continuously against the media stories. You'll fight continuously against the story that people tell themselves and what that old imprint is of what it's like to work in a contact center environment. So that's the messaging that you have to get into your people that are currently in your center, so that they can go out and spread that message. They can go out and spread the love of how important it is to be valued. They can tell you how important that their particular employer values them as an individual and the support that they've put in place for them to be able to grow in that contact center environment. It's the brand is so important. It needs to come back to the person.
Yeah. And Leanne.
Yeah, I mean, I think even before you start a recruitment process, the important thing is that you define what your employer brand looks like, because ultimately that's what's going to make you have that standout proposition from everybody else. So, we know it's not enough anymore to put a job advert out and hope to be inundated with applications. It really has to be around what it is to work in your contact center. What does the culture feel like? What are the talent pathways in the organization? What are the values? We talked about the values. So anybody coming into your contact center knows what the expectations are in terms of your values. Or is it people centric? Is it bold? Obviously, I'm talking about ours here. But people know when they come into our business, because the values are in the adverts, they're in the recruitment process, they know what to expect when they come into the business as well. So I think it's about telling stories. I think, like you said, Julie, about the people in the business, telling stories about what it is to work there. What does it look like? Videos in your attraction strategy, all of these things. go a really long way in terms of building what your employer brand looks like, because I think consumer brands are really prevalent, but employer brands less so. So I think there's a huge exercise for organisations to invest as much in their employer brand as they do in their consumer brands, because that's where it starts. If you've got that bit wrong, you're just not going to attract the talent that you want into the business. So absolutely, it's critically important.
And finally, I'm conscious we're starting to come to the end of the session. I could talk about this all day. I really enjoyed the session so far. So in terms of ongoing support, is there any specific training or development programs can help foster the desired mindset for the contact centre environment? Julie, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think for me, the journey is continuous. It has to be continuous. It starts from the beginning, it doesn't end. We go round, but it's not necessarily a journey for the masses. It's the journey for the individual. It has to be driven for the individual need. It's got to be by the individual desire to want to do that. So, again, come back to the 80-20 rule. If they're in the right mindset, they will want to learn, they'll want to grow with you. But we have to remember that one cap doesn't fit all. So somebody's learning style is very different to the other. Somebody's behaviours, somebody's story is very different to the other person. So again, we have to think about how we impact those people. We can talk around doing workshops on specific mindset behaviours, around confidence, around the imposter, around the procrastination, all of the different mindsets, and we can provide tools for individuals to take away that they can implement into their day-to-day. But we have to come back to an individual journey for that person and what that person is feeling and what story they're telling themselves. So for me, it's about offering a solution, what they can take away and work on themselves for them, so that at the point that they need to access that, they can then tap into it and go, do you know what? I recognise right now I'm at a point in my story where I feel overwhelmed. If I feel overwhelmed in that story, what can I do personally to impact how I feel in that situation and how I show up in that situation? And if we can, as call centres, as leaders, as managers, enable those people to do that for themselves, they will then show up. They will then be your biggest asset. They will be your biggest brand ambassador. They will be the person that goes out and shouts to all their friends, their family, this is the place you want to be. But until you will give them the tools they need to work on them as an individual, they'll never be able to do that.
And I guess that leads on perfectly, Leanne, for you to tell us a little bit more, talking about the tools to make people be successful, to share a little bit more around the ongoing support and what Grow could do.
Yeah, so I briefly touched on it before. So Grow is a new training model that, where I say new, it literally is just going to market over the last.
It's not even on the website yet, is it?
So hot off the press. So Grow, which stands for Get Ready for Opportunities at Work. I better get right, seeing as my head of marketing's on the call, I'll be in trouble. So Get Ready for Opportunities at Work. It basically it came about because we know that there's several challenges that people face in the recruitment process. One is attracting enough candidates to the top end of the funnel, regardless of backgrounds, experience. It's that initial attraction. Another issue, I guess, is losing candidates from the recruitment process. And another one is losing candidates through early attrition, people moving on because they haven't had a great onboarding experience or haven't felt invested in or whatever the reasoning might be. So we came up with Grow, which is a accredited module-based training online platform it basically is going to slot into the recruitment journey is probably the easiest way to describe it. So there'll be the attraction stage, the recruitment process, there'll be a job offer. Then there'll be 4 modules, which are introduction to the contact centre. I'm not going to go into detail around them. Julie will be posting this on the website and things at some point. But there's 4 modules, which basically, if you've never worked in a contact centre before, even before you start the job, you'll know what it's all about in simple terms. Then you start the role, and then there's a further 4 modules. So basically what it's allowing us to do is attract new people into the sector. It's allowing us to position the contact centre as a career of choice, talk about talent pathways, all of those things, and really look at that long-term sustainability of that constant attracting new people into the sector. what it also does is allow in-house training teams to really focus on what's unique about their organisations and business, because people landing with them will already have gone through these 8 modules of introduction to the contact centre. So without this turning into a bit of a sales pitch, that's pretty much in a nutshell about what Grow is going to be. As I said, there'll be a bit more information about it on the website. But ultimately, for us, it's about making sure that we're improving that candidate experience, that end-to-end candidate experience of coming into an organisation, and just adding that value in terms of, you know, what else we can be doing in terms of supporting clients and improving that candidate experience. So
it's really important in terms of, you know, just professionalising the contact centre industry. I'm super excited about the programme because it's totally unique. So thank you to both Julie and Leanne for your time today. I've really enjoyed today's session. Oh, Martin Teasdale saying it sounds awesome. So thumbs up from an industry guru. We'll buy you a drink on Monday at the awards, Martin. So it's been absolutely fabulous session, learn a little bit more about mindset and how it can, you know, benefit through the recruitment process. So if anybody wants more information on Julie's business and activated mindset, where can they reach out to you, Julie? Is it LinkedIn the best?
Yeah, LinkedIn would be best. Drop me a message on LinkedIn. I love to talk about mindset, and I would love to come and talk to you guys in your business about that too.
Fantastic. And Leanne, what's the best way for anybody to reach you?
Yeah, probably the same through LinkedIn. Yeah, if anybody's got any questions or want to take any conversations offline.
Fantastic, brilliant. Couple of just notes from me. Our next Talk and Talent Live is on the 14th of July, where we're going to be joined by Tony Neal, who works for NHS-BSA. Tony is on the shadow board for their ED&I strategy, and he's also a male menopause champion, and he's an ally for neurodiversity. So we're going to be hearing a lot about what the NHS-BSA are doing for their people in terms of the ED&I strategy, but also the sense of belonging for some of the new emerging fields that people are starting to look at, that, you know, around neurodiversity, menopause, raising awareness, reducing stigma as well. I'm super excited about that one. And as always, fabulous for everyone joining us today. Thanks so much. The link will be there for those that have missed it, or if you want to catch up on something, we will be posting that on the channels, and you'll be able to catch that up with some subtitles on and everything else. And we look forward to seeing those of you that can join us at the UK Contact Centre Awards on Monday. We'll have a table there, so please come and say hello. We've got a fabulous table, so I think we'll be quite a raucous bunch. And for now, enjoy the sunshine, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.